Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. Now, I have here a very special guest, a very knowledgeable guest on something that I am a fan of, and that is pro wrestling. Please welcome to the show, Kenny Bolin. Kenny, how are you, my friend?
Well, first of all, it's Kenny the Star Maker Bolin, and it's absolutely embarrassing and humiliating that it took you 41 takes just to get this one.
I know,
Amazing.
I'm sorry, but 42 was good, though.
42 wasn't bad. You forgot the Star Maker part.
Yeah.
The most important, or the king. You see, there's a crown floating around back there. There it is. There's the crown. King, Star Maker, but hey, very rarely do I ever get just called Kenny Bolin. It was almost a pleasure.
Oh, well.
It was almost a pleasure.
Well, the pleasure was all mine. Now, as I said there in the opener, you have a history here in pro wrestling. But before we get into that, kind of tell us a little bit about how you grew up and then how you got involved in wrestling. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some of your experiences and maybe some of your heat that you have with certain people.
Well, I've certainly told the story a few times, but probably not to your audience.
Correct.
I'm sure a lot of people are tuning in going, who the hell is this guy? Well, stay tuned, and I guess you're about to find out. If you're a bit of a wrestling fan at all, and if you know anything about the top stars that are in the WWE today, I probably had a little something to do with a lot of those guys that are there. I developed a love for wrestling probably when I was about 5 or 6 years old, watching with my grandpa Bolin out in Eminence, Kentucky. And we were just, obviously just fans at that age. And his buddy Radio, who would never shut up. Maybe I picked up more from Radio than I picked up from my grandpa, because my grandpa was a bit of a weekend drunk. He would get his paycheck and he would go drinking and give half of his check away before he ever got home. Very nice drunk, very kind drunk, but he loved his Pabst Blue Ribbon. Let's just say that. Radio also loved alcohol and would never shut up. So when I'd go over to their house on the weekend, a lot of it was watching pro wrestling. And that was the Cincinnati-based wrestling at that time, which was pretty much run by the original Sheik. And then came Memphis television, and I started watching that probably around 1969, give or take. That was run by Nick Goulas, and then eventually it was run by Jerry Jarrett, and then eventually run by Jerry Lawler. And that was the wrestling that I really fell in love with the studio storyline wrestling. The storylines the Sheik were running, and of course, I was only between 6 and 10 years old. I might not remember many of those storylines, but just about everything that happened from the age of 10 till current day, I remember like it happened yesterday. Jim Cornette, who I used to work with for quite some time and was my childhood best friend for the better part of 45 years. He and I can sit there and just recite old interviews that we heard from 1970 on like we heard them yesterday, but don't ask us what we had to eat yesterday. We might not remember that, but we do remember our old wrestling promos. So I fell in love with wrestling during that era. That was the era of the bounty hunters, the interns and Dr. Ken Ramey, the Mighty Yankees, Don and Al Green, the Mean Greens, the Heavenly Bodies. Then, of course, there was Jerry Lawler, Jim White, and Sam Bass, and a cast of others. But it was Jerry Lawler that got my attention even before he was the king. And then eventually in 1974, I got to go to my first wrestling match. I had to give up skating on Tuesday nights to go watch wrestling, and that was a sacrifice I was happy to make. And eventually through time, a guy named Jimmy Hart, who was not managing in wrestling yet, he was just Lawler's college buddy, and would travel on a lot of the road trips with Jerry. And wrestling was drawing huge ass crowds back then. They would do Memphis on Monday nights and draw 12,000. They'd do Louisville Gardens on Tuesday nights and draw between 5,000 and 6,000. They would draw 3,000 or 4,000 in Evansville, 9,000 to 12,000 at Rupp Arena, a couple of 3,000 in Tupelo, maybe another 1,000 or 2 in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And everywhere they went, Nashville, of course, everywhere they went was a sellout. And Jerry Lawler got to be a big star. And then he went away for a little bit and he came back. And when he came back, he was the king. And I think the guy's name was Bobby Shane that had the original king gimmick. Lawler really liked it because in a promo that he had done just before the week before, he had declared himself, I'm going to be the king around here when I beat you, Jackie Fargo, because Jackie Fargo was the king of wrestling here during that era. So Lawler had pretty much declared himself king, but he had no gimmick to go to. But Bobby Shane was going to Australia. He didn't want to take that big ass robe and crown and everything with him. And he wasn't going to be the king down there. So he told Lawler he could borrow it till he got back. Well, Bobby Shane died in a plane crash. When he got back from Australia, he died in a plane crash in Florida. And Lawler still had his crown in his robe. So needless to say, Bobby Shane never got that back. Jerry Lawler became the king. And he and I got to be friends probably around 74 to 75. He eventually gave me a pair of his tights. He would give me rides to McDonald's, while most of the wrestlers went and got alcohol at a some place called, God, I can't remember the name of it, but some place where all the boys would go get their alcohol. Me and Lawler would go to McDonald's and get a Big Red and a Big Mac. And I just looked up to him. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he didn't do drugs. And that was who I wanted to be, because I'd been exposed to a lot of that as a child. So he became my hero. And then eventually through time, I ran into Nick Goulas at a Service Merchandise, because Jimmy Cornette had never helped me get in wrestling, even though that was the plan. Jerry Lawler had never really offered me anything, because I don't think he knew that I wanted to be in. Bill Dundee told me he didn't know I wanted to be in. So in 1987, many years after Cornette had already been in the business, I think he got in 81, maybe 80. And so seven years goes by and I'm still not in the business. So I bumped into Nick Goulas, introduced myself to him. I said, well, I'm very good friends with Jerry Lawler and Jimmy Cornette. He says, you look a little bit like Jerry Lawler. He said, I'm getting ready to start a new wrestling promotion around here. Are you in the wrestling business right now? I said, well, no, not really. I said, I haven't really done anything. I said, I've been around it for a long time, but I've never been in it. Well, what are your aspirations? What do you want to be? I said, well, I wouldn't mind being an announcer. I wouldn't mind being a manager. I said, I don't really have any desires to be a wrestler. I said, I did that in high school. I said, I was 212-0. I was a good amateur wrestler, but we already have a king of wrestling. I want to be the king of announcers. I want to be the king of managers. That's what I want to be. And I think I could do very good at both. So he hired me on the spot at Service Merchandise, got in the wrestling business, and that's pretty much how the start began.
Wow.
And I guess I should take a breath and let you ask a question now.
No, I mean, that's Jerry Lawler is just one of them people that I think a lot of people, especially in my age, unless you go back and do some research, because a lot of them names you were throwing out there, I felt bad because I was like, I don't know none of those guys. But then that would make sense, because the reason being is I wasn't born.
Hardly any of those guys are alive anymore.
I was about to say, I wasn't even born when that. But Jerry,
I was about to ask you how old you are. I'm 62. How old are you?
Okay, so I'm 38.
30. Okay, my son's 35. So you're in that ballpark.
Yeah. So a lot of people, I think, probably remember Jerry from the King and WWF, WWE.
Of course.
Being the
a lot of them know very little about his Memphis days, which
Correct.
is where he actually did his best work. If you had a chance to go back and look at that stuff.
Right. Oh, and I did.
That when he was a heel.
Yes.
Not this clown they got him to play. And I'm not trying to shit on what he's done in WWE, but that guy and the Memphis guy are two different guys. If you've gone back and seen the tapes.
Yeah. Memphis Jerry was something different. I mean,
that was something different.
The whole Andy Kaufman deal that they had going on. A lot of people got a glimpse of that when they done Man on the Moon with Jim Carrey.
Of course.
That was, back then when Andy Kaufman, that was a real deal. And I mean, they played that perfect. And Jerry Lawler is just a god in Memphis. And I had a chance.
As a matter of fact, my daughter-in-law, who was never really a big fan of wrestling, but she got to know me through it. She was born in Brazil, lived in Germany, came over here and married my son 7-8 years ago. And she never really got she met the part of wrestling that a lot of people don't like, the over obsessed fans, the trolls and all that shit from where I do my podcast. And if you get rid of anybody, they lose their fucking minds. I've got trollers that have been trolling me for 5 years, every show I do. Dedicated lifetime trolls that just can't get over the fact they're not allowed to be in my life anymore. So that was the part of the wrestling business she got to know. And she saw me in Ohio Valley Wrestling and some excerpts that we got to do with WWE and some shows I did live at WWE events. But she never saw what got me loving pro wrestling. And my son showed her, I guess, 6 or 7 segments of Jerry Lawler from Memphis from like 1975, 76, maybe up to about 1980. And she watched a bit with Lawler and Ric Flair and, of course, the Andy Kaufman stuff where Jerry was the babyface. But it was the heel stuff that Jerry did. And she says, oh, now I get it. She said, because I believed everything he was telling me. And that's why he was so good. Whether you thought you were smart to wrestling or not, you were not smart to Jerry Jarrett's business, and you were not smart to Jerry the King Lawler, because you believed what he wanted you to believe. And Jerry Jarrett once told me during the great debate, well, before the great debate that I had with Jimmy Cornette, he said, the reason I'm pissed at Jimmy is because he hid you from me for the better part of 7 or 8 years. He says, can you imagine how much money I would have made because thought you and Cornette hated each other. And then eventually, I guess we did. But he said, if I thought you two hated each other, can you imagine what the fans would have thought? And he said, the cool thing is I wouldn't have had to tell either of you what to say. You knew what to do naturally. I would have been so hands off with you two. Cornette says that's not true. He'd been very hands on. But he says, but if you can fool me, and I taught you guys. You learned all your stuff watching my shows. Hi, Scooby. You learned all your stuff watching my shows, and you fool me. He said, imagine what you'd have done to those fans. And I wouldn't have had to make either one of you heel or face. They would have probably hated both of you. But I think they would have probably picked Jimmy because that's what you all have done in real life. You have your debates on podcasts. You have your debates on television. But Kenny is normally the heel. Jimmy's normally the face. And he said, that's probably how it would have played out in Memphis. They would have hated you both. But if you're going head to head, they would have wanted Jimmy to get the best of you. I said, that's just naturally how it worked out. And I never thought of being the baby face with me and Jimmy. And I don't think Jimmy ever thought of being the heel. I just don't even think it was considered.
Wow. Now tell us a little bit about the beef that you had going with Cornette, because Cornette's one of those guys that when I was coming up, he was prevalent, especially around WCW. Remember when he had his racket and the loud blazers that he would wear. And the mouthpiece, a great mouthpiece at that. And that
matter of fact, I have the last ever Jim Cornette spite can because they said he was filled with so much spite, and I had 24 of these. I sold them all for $25 each. And that's the last one, folks. That's the last one there. And I think Jimmy's got one. Oh, so we'll just set that over there during this segment. The old Jimmy Cornette spike. Yeah, there you go. And so what was your question again?
How did the beef come between you two? Because y'all got along, by and large, y'all got along for quite a while.
Well, yeah, for about 45 years, we did fairly well. Yeah. But if you listen to our old podcast, the reason they work so well is because there was always a shoot worked into the podcast. Right. And I could call Jimmy out on anything. And people have reminded me, they said, well, Kenny, you called Jimmy out on that hot tub shit. You called him out for being more like Trump than Trump is. You've always said that he was a closet Republican and that he probably worshiped Trump, probably was mad that Trump was doing Cornette better than Cornette could. And I said, well, yeah, if you listen to those shows, that's why they worked, because anything I called Jimmy out on that was a shoot, I could call him out, say I told the truth. Jimmy could say it was a lie, but they were so good because he was truly trying to defend something that he knew that I didn't like, whether I was calling him out for racism, whether I was calling him out for the hot tub shit and making the boys bang his wife to get their way to the top. It all sounded pretty fabricated on a podcast. But now that time has played out and they go, well, my God, you were calling Cornette out on that shit. You always said he was a closet Trumper and that he was more like Trump than anybody you knew. I said, yeah, and I meant it. He said, well, you called him out on the hot tub shit. I said, you guys didn't know about it yet. So it just made a great podcast. But there's tons of shit I called him out on. And now that people have gone back and listened to those shows, they realize, well, Kenny was kind of shooting. Jimmy was defending himself, but it sounded like they might be working us. And that's why Jerry Jarrett was so easily fooled, is because there was always a little bit of truth worked into those podcasts.
So now
the reason I look over here some, you're on my 70-inch screen that I see you. Mm-hmm. The camera's over there. One of these days, I'm going to figure out how to tie both into the same deal.
Well, I got a question about that because do you know Matt Granahan?
The name does not strike a bell with me. Okay. Where would I know Matt Granahan from?
He calls himself the King of Connecticut. He does a lot on Hannibal TV.
Well, he can have Connecticut because anything above that Mason-Dixon line I'm not normally too fond of. And I am there's no rebel flags in this house. This is a Black Lives Matter house. You would think that I wouldn't care too much for below the Mason-Dixon line. But my God, it's expensive up there. So if he wants to be the King of Connecticut, he can have it.
Well, the reason why I bring him up is because
I possess the crown down here. I assure you, he don't have a crown like that. I promise you.
I haven't seen it if he does.
Well, it's because he don't have one. But go ahead.
He's not the first person to bring up the boys fucking corner.
Well, Jimmy used to live in Connecticut, so he might have some insight on that.
Jimmy might, but what's the deal with the fucking the wife thing? What I mean, you're not the first person to bring this up. I mean,
no, my son was actually among the first to bring it up. Apparently, him and Phil Early. As Jimmy said, and I'm just using his own words. Jimmy said that was people are judging me because I have an interesting sex life, and I not long after that said, no, your wife has an interesting sex life. You apparently like to sit back and watch her interesting sex life. And there have been some people in the business that have been accused of that. Some very famous people from the South who like to watch people fuck their wives. Now, that was never my cup of tea. I was never wanted to be a part of that. So I wasn't invited to any of that shit that they knew I would never be a part of. It wasn't due to I was a religious morals. I'm an atheist, just like Jimmy, or at least Jimmy claims to be. And I think he used to believe in God till his mother died. And he told me, and then he said, Kenny, I'm with you. He says, I'm now an atheist too. And this is when we were at Ohio Valley Wrestling. And I said, well, what turned you? He says, no God would ever let my mother die the way she did. I said, well, I agree with you. I said, because if there is a God, he's letting a lot of bad shit go down on his watch. And I'm going to get a bit of religion on you here. And God gets heat for a lot of shit. Well, that tornado blew over that church. Well, that was an act of God. Well, why did he take that tornado that was an act of God and blow over a church that killed a few babies? Well, that was God's will. All right, well, what about that volcano? Well, that was an act of God. Well, what about that typhoon? Well, that was an act of God. Well, what about that flood that killed thousands of people? Well, that was an act of God. I said, well, why is God doing all this bad shit? Why don't we put that shit on the devil? If you're going to believe in one or the other, and of course, I don't believe in either. I have no fear of going to hell because I'm not concerned that there's a heaven. But if you all want to believe in this invisible man so much, and that's what George Carlin used to call him, why don't you give the bad shit to the devil? Why don't you give that shit to him? And these miracles and everything, why don't we give those to God? That seems to be a much better play. I would be more likely to be on board if the God was doing all the good shit and could manage money, by the way. He seems to need a lot of money. And the people that represent him seem to need a lot of money and live in very nice houses with a lot of cars and private jets and shit like that. Maybe if you gave the God the credit for the good shit, let the devil take all the bad shit. So I've probably been an atheist since the age of 6. I refuse to pray in school. I refuse to pledge allegiance to the flag. That's just never been me. And but I do believe in karma. I think eventually, but Trump has made me think maybe there is no karma. But let's see what happens over these next year or so. Maybe karma is finally about to be served up. But I believe in karma. I believe in being good to people. I believe in doing unto others as you want them to do unto you, not do unto them before they do unto you first. Like a lot of people believe, do unto others and try to put yourself in their shoes. Whatever they're going through, try to put yourself in their shoes. And that's what I've always done, whatever the hell that makes me. But no, it wasn't morals had anything to do with it. If I wanted to fuck somebody's wife and somebody's wife wanted to go along with it, then so be it. I just had no desire to be a part of that particular wife fucking incident.
God damn.
Yeah.
Fuck my wife.
So, but no, let's put it this way. I wasn't there for any of it, but as Dave Chappelle once said, I don't know if it's true or not, but a lot of people saying it. So, and my son had some inside information that all the boys used to tell him. They would tell him shit they wouldn't tell me because they think I would be upset about it, but I knew all that shit. I know what he likes to drink. His own mother told me that he smoked behind my back because he was ashamed that I would know he was a smoker. I've had people very close to him in his home that have told me that he has done other drugs that he knew I'd be ashamed of him about. And he still to this day, unless he's watching this podcast or some of the others I've mentioned it on, I don't think he knows that I know about the drinking because he finally opened up about that. I don't drink, never have. But the drug use thing, like I said, I never personally saw him do it, but there's a lot of people saying it. And,
and
a lot of reliable people saying it.
You hate to put that somebody might do something based on the way they're portrayed on screen because you never know how much of that is a character, but he is so.
I don't think Jimmy's ever done anything on camera that would make you think he lets people fuck his wife or snort coke.
No,
or be an alcoholic. There's nothing of that screen persona that would lead you to believe that, or at least I wouldn't think so.
Well, maybe not fuck his wife, but he is a very high-strung individual. So
very high-strung.
Maybe a key bump here and there. Maybe not.
Well, see, I don't know
Young territory.
I don't know enough about drugs to know what cocaine would do to me. I do know that marijuana would probably mellow you out.
Right.
There's enough people that live near me that smoke marijuana that I've stepped out on my porch and wondered if I was high when I got back in the house. Some of them recently moved out, thank God. But no, this is a very hippie area. I live in an old home that was built like in the 1890s, and this is a very hippie, artsy area that I live in. And I guarantee you, I go up and down this road, and I might be one of 5 people that doesn't smoke marijuana, and there's thousands of people in this neighborhood. But it just never was for me. And that was like, well, and Dutch Mantel told me once that to his knowledge, Jerry Lawler had never even took an aspirin. Well, I can't claim that. I've took aspirin. I've took some painkillers. I know it wasn't prescribed. I know I've gone to the dentist and gone to the hospital when they prescribed me some very strong, serious shit. And I might take it for a day or two just to get through that first couple of days. But in fear of addiction, seeing what it's done to so many people in the wrestling business, I normally have plenty of it left over. And you should see the wrestlers flocking around when they would find out I had leftover painkillers. Oh my God. But in my poor friend Lance Cade, he got addicted to painkillers when he got hurt wrestling Bob Holly. And we did a 2-hour podcast about that, probably around 08 or 09. I can't remember what year he passed away, but somewhere close to that. And then weeks after he did my podcast, he had a OD in his sleeping in his father's bed in Texas. And on the previous show, he had blamed Bob Holly for hurting him and getting him hooked on those painkillers. And then when he admitted himself into rehab for WWE to pay for it, they didn't want him back because he'd been in rehab. So he gets help and they penalized him for it, which I thought was pretty fucking dirty, to be honest with you.
Yeah, at least he's, went there willingly. I mean, a lot of times people.
But in case I can tell you're salivating to ask me, no, I never fucked Jimmy's wife. Was I offered to? The offer was made when he first came back down here. He told me that was on her list of shit to do. I said, well, tell her to take that off her list. That's not going to happen. And the excuse I used, I didn't want to use looks or anything like that as an excuse. I said, well, do you remember the other girl that you married that you found out later that her and I had been together, and then she told you that we hadn't, and then you asked me to tell you the truth? And I said, okay, I don't know that you can handle the truth, but I told him. And it really, it made it very difficult for her to look me in the eye because she had told Jimmy nothing happened. Jimmy already knew that it did because I was with one girl one night, he was with one the next, and then we switched girls the following night. He had the blonde and I had the brunette, and that was in Texas when I was down there doing some shows with him. And then I didn't know the girl was going to get dropped off on his doorstep in North Carolina and basically begged Jimmy to marry him. I guess that's how it happened. He didn't go to Texas to seek her out. Her mother dropped her off at Jimmy's doorstep in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then next thing I know, they're getting married. I said, oh shit. So
Goddamn.
Yeah, goddamn kid, did you fuck my wife? Not when you were married. No, you're getting a scoop here. I don't know that I've ever told this entire story. So you better donate to my charity because you're getting a scoop here.
I absolutely will.
Big money, motherfucker. I want Scaramucci money on this donation. You know what Scaramucci's donating?
I do not.
You don't want to know. Oh, Scaramucci never got this story, I'll tell you that.
That's hilarious. Well, tell everybody real quick. Plug your own podcast.
Tell them real quick how I fucked Jimmy's previous wife. No.
Yeah, tell them how you fucked Jimmy's no. Your podcast, your own personal podcast, because you've got a lot of stars on your podcast from your time in the business. Really quick, tell them
we'll get all that at the end of the show here, but the Bolin Alley. The Bolin Alley, BOLINALLEY, the Bolin Alley on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Just and just basically type in a star's name you want to see me with. Be it now, I've done Chris Jericho's show, I've done Steve Austin's show a couple of times. Never done the Undertaker's banned from my show, by the way. I banned the Undertaker because I found out he donated to Donald Trump. What mark donates $75,000 to a guy he thinks is a multi-billionaire? Then again, I hear Chris Jericho donated too, but I like Chris Jericho.
Mark Calloway, that would be the mark.
Mark Calloway. But I think Jericho admitted he donated to Trump, and he's the only one I've forgiven for it because he's Canadian. And he didn't know anything. I can't
really see me, no matter what political party I'm with, whatever. I can't really see me donating to a fucking president.
Well, if you think the guy's a billionaire, I mean, if you blow Trump and you think he's the come all do all, okay. But you're gonna give what little piddly money you've got, whoever you are.
Yeah.
Any of us watching this show right now.
I'm not.
You're gonna give it to a multi-billionaire who said he was gonna pay for his campaign and then he didn't, and he still to this day is taking money from the GOP to pay his legal bills. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, I'm not.
What are you doing?
I'm not donating to any of
I'm
them.
not, I love Scaramucci, but I'm not donating to him because he's got billions and I don't. So I'm not going to give to a billionaire. But fortunately, that billionaire and Mark Cuban and others have donated to me, and I greatly appreciate that. And my charity.
Yeah, Mark Cuban, he's got his Mavs. They're in the thick of it right now.
Oh yeah. We got a big win. Got a big win there in Dallas a night or two ago, and they were down 2-0 in the last one, so let's get 2 in Dallas and then go back to Golden State land and see what happens.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough road. Curry and them boys are playing good right now.
But on my show, yeah, you're Scaramucci's been on like 8 times. Cuban's been on once or twice. Just about any big name in wrestling you can think of has been on at one time or another. Dutch Mantel was on not too long ago, and I've never had Lawler on my show, but I've done his. But me and Lawler do not line up politically, and I don't think he wants anything to do with my show. He doesn't even want to be accused of being seen near my show. But we talk on the phone from time to time, and we chat back and forth from time to time. But he made it clear I said, why don't you just come on my show and let's talk about wrestling? He says, Kenny, why would I want to do that? I said, because it's what it's done. That's what you've done your whole life. He said, exactly. That's why I don't want to do that. So he did Steve Austin's, and I got a feeling Steve Austin paid him a lot more money than we were going to, because we don't pay our guests.
No, I don't blame you.
We expect our guests to donate. What we expect them to do.
I had a chance to meet Jerry at WrestleCade in Winston-Salem a couple years ago. My son met him, and we went down there. It's a neat little event to see a lot of the stars from really from my day. To be quite honest, you seen.
Oh yeah,
Tonk Man down there.
I had Honky Tonk Man on my show not long ago. There's another one I don't line up with politically, but me and Honky Tonk get along pretty good. He blocked me on social media because my liberal fans and friends were just flooding him with shit, and he just couldn't see it no more. Lawler's muted me before. He hasn't blocked me. We still follow each other, but I guarantee you he's got me on mute because he doesn't want to see all the shit I tweet out every day. And I can assure you, but Jericho wrote me the other day. He commented about a show that I did when Jim Cornette and Stephen New were threatening to sue me and or Rene Dupree. And we did a show addressing that. And Jericho was nice enough to write me and say, hey, man, just ignore that. Well, I won't say what he said because even though I've seen him say some very public things about Jimmy that were not flattering, what he said to me was private, but he was very supportive. So we'll just leave it at that. And I like Chris. Chris stepped up big when Rico Constantino was in bad shape. He donated big money to help Rico out, set up a GoFundMe that raised some money to really get and Rico's in great shape now. He's back to being a cop. And basically, Chris Jericho, the GoFundMe we set up and what we raised on my show changed Rico's life. Wow. And saved his life. And he'll be the first to tell you that. And Rico thinks the world of Jericho for what he did.
That's cool, man. I know you had a lot to do, involved in the actual business itself, but as a fan, what was kind of like your favorite era of wrestling to watch?
Oh, that was obviously, we talked about it already. That was the Memphis era. That was probably 1974 when Jerry became the king. I enjoyed it before then when it was the interns and Dr. Ken Ramey and Kurt and Carl von Bronner with manager Saul Weingroff. I mean, I'm throwing some names at you don't know, but you need to look them up because they are what developed Memphis wrestling. But when Jerry came along, it was a whole nother story. Jerry had that great ability to make you believe whatever he said. If he told you he was going to go down to Kroger and was going to be waiting on Dutch Mantel to show up, and let me tell you something, Dutch Mantel, when you show up, I'm going to beat you within an inch of your life. I'm going to drag you through that meat department. I'm going to take you to produce. I'm going to drag you down to the deli aisle. I'm going to shove chicken salad so far up your anal orifice, it's going to come out your nose. He'd make you believe it. He would make you, well, I'm going to go down there because goddamn, when Dutch comes to Kroger, Lawler's going to be waiting on him. And Dutch had the ability to do the same thing. If Dutch was threatening Lawler to come to Kroger and tell Lawler what he's going to do, they both had an immaculate, unbelievable talent to make you believe, even though you knew better. Yeah. Whether you thought it was a work or not, they convinced you. Lawler and Dundee were the best at it. Lawler and Dundee had a bit where Dundee had to put his hair up, and then Dundee lost his hair. So then he put his wife's hair up. And then Lawler put his Cadillac up, and and they hated each other kind of a little bit in real life. Now they get along great, but there was a lot of tension as to who was the man in Memphis, and Dundee was the superstar. I said, Dundee, how in the hell did the star maker not manage the superstar? But I never became the star maker until I'd been at OVW for a few years. And then I sent so many people to the WWE, and Cornette did not think that Lance Cade and Mark Jindrak would ever make it. He said, well, Bolin, your streak is over. All your guys getting called up. He said, those two are never going to go. I said, I beg to differ with you. I said, they'll be up in 6 weeks. Well, 3 weeks later, they both got called up. And then Jimmy was just waiting on me to come out and do the interview. He said, well, here he is, ladies and gentlemen, the old star maker himself. So I wasn't even going to let him go into the interview. I said, yeah, Jimmy. I said, you told me backstage that Cade and Jindrak would never see a day in the WWE. And I said, I told you they would. And you looked at me like I had a smoking turd hanging out of my mouth. And then Jimmy starts laughing. Jimmy's laughing on camera, trying to cover his mouth up and step off camera because he wasn't expecting me to say, you looked at me like I had a smoking turd hanging out of my mouth. Lawler says, why would you say such a thing? I said, because I knew it had never been said on television. Why would anybody say that on TV, Kenny? I said, well, you're talking about it. Jimmy Cornette talked about it. Danny Davis said, I'm pretty sure no one's ever said that on television before. I said, but I have. I've done something original. I said something on TV that had never been said before, and I'm very proud of it. And plus, I made Jimmy laugh on camera. So that was the night I was labeled the Star Maker. And because Jerry even asked me on his podcast, he says, well, Kenny, I know that we know you as the king of managers, and we've had our problems with that. How did you become the Star Maker? And I didn't know he was going to ask me that question. So it was and I remember exactly the day it happened. So I went backstage. I said, you know what? I said, there's 1,000 goddamn kings. King of managers, king of this, King Harley, King Owen, king this, king that. But there aren't no Star Makers. I'm going to, people can call me the king if they want to. I'll still be the king of managers. But this Star Maker thing's pretty good. And you see the briefcase back there. Star Maker. Yeah, there it is.
I see it.
Star Maker Bolin. So I loved it. There was no other. And then do you know who Johnny Nitro is, right? When he was in Johnny Morrison. Well, the first night they brought him on television, they say, up next, the Star Maker. People are calling my home. and I'm answering. They said, well, Raw's live. What are you doing home? I said, why are you calling me? They said, because I was recording it. I wasn't watching it. And they said, well, Raw just announced that the Star Maker's coming up. I said, really? I said, well, I got news for you. I don't know who's coming out, but it ain't going to be me. And I got no clue who they're going to bring out. Johnny Morrison didn't know. He was at TV Wednesday. He didn't tell us. So now it's the following Monday. So I'm getting to the television to find out who the hell's coming out. I said, well, I can assure you, it ain't going to be me. I'm sitting at home. I'm here in my recliner watching the show. And I must have got 100 calls that night because the Star Maker's next. So I turn on the television and I'll be goddamn if Johnny Morrison doesn't come out. Johnny Star Maker. I said, motherfuck. So I called Cornette. I said, what's this shit? He says, I swear to God, I had no clue they were going to do that. I said, well, we got a Star Maker down here. I said, the developmental territory's already got a Star Maker. I said, what? Is he going to come back down here? And now we got 2 Star Makers. We're going to have the battle for I said, I'm not a wrestler. I can't wrestle him for the fucking title. I said, so apparently Jimmy made a call. And the next thing you know, he's not the Star Maker anymore. So the next week, I forgot what they called him out, but they didn't like that one either. That one didn't stick. I think they also gave him someone else's name. And so and Johnny's had a new name everywhere he's ever been. What's his name now in AEW? Johnny Elite.
Yeah, Elite.
Yeah, he's Johnny Elite. What's the goddamn name of the company? All Elite Wrestling, right? So he's Johnny Elite. I hated that they brought him out to lose his first match. I thought that was a crock of shit.
Putting a lot of thought into those names still, I see.
Yeah, tons of thought and little booking effort because you don't bring him out there to lose his first fucking match.
I do
put him in a situation where he can get over with the crowd.
You know, when I was coming up, obviously Hulk Hogan was in his prime, and it was like WrestleMania 3 was probably like my first pay-per-view that I remember watching, you know, when he slammed the Giant, and then I was really hooked in there between, you know, WrestleMania 4, then 5 when he fought Savage, 6 when he dropped the belt to Warrior, when he was attempting of a passing of the torch.
Right.
Those were good. You know, that was a good era, but I just don't think there was much like the Attitude Era. It dropped.
Attitude Era was something special. Attitude Era was very special.
Mixed that with the Monday Night Wars, and that was when it became real, because as a fan, obviously at that point, you were starting to get smartened up a little bit to the business, but then you had these 2 guys show up on the rival channel.
Hall and Nash, yeah.
Yeah, Hall and Nash, and it was like, what the hell are they doing over there? And it's not.
And we knew it was obviously we all knew it was a work. We were developmental for WWE then, and you still got caught up in it.
Yeah,
you still got even as workers, we all got caught up in it.
because they went to using their real names, WWE or WWF at the time. They're used to, hey, that's Hall or Razor Ramon, and that's
and then Vince was so pissed he got the fake Hall and fake Nash that went over like a fart in church.
Yeah, well, that was one of what the fake Diesel turned out to be. Glenn Jacobs, right? Kane.
Yeah, I think it was. I think you're right. Yeah. That and of course he was Isaac Yankem.
Yeah,
Lawler probably
Jerry Lawler's Dennis.
Yeah, that was that didn't go over too well. I hope that wasn't Jerry's idea.
I think Bret Hart, and that was it.
I think Jerry's capable of better. I hope that wasn't his idea. I hope he was blackmailed. I hope he was blackmailed into doing the Isaac Yankem thing.
But I mean, that to me, that was Vince at his creative best, because he was under the gun. Like, he was close to being put out of business. They had him over
I don't know if he was close to being out of business or not, but they were certainly sharing the market, and Bischoff had won 88 weeks in a row, right?
83, I think.
83. It might be 83. And I had him on my show when I'd done close to 80 shows in a row I think I ended up doing 112 shows in a row. And I wanted to have him on for the 83rd in a row to honor but we had to have him on a little bit early due to scheduling. But I remember telling everybody, I said, this is the year. I said, when the NBA playoffs hit and all you're going to be able to watch is Raw, and WCW is going to be coming on late at night. And I told everybody that would fucking listen. And I just started at OVW. We did not have our contract with WWE as of yet. I said, when people have to see this, and they're not going to see what's going on at WCW, I said, Raw is going to kick major ass. I said, the streak is over. And I told everybody that would listen, my hand to whatever it is you believe in. And then sure enough, they had 2 or 3 weeks where the playoffs were going, maybe 4, to where WCW had to go on late at night. And people, if you wanted to watch wrestling at 8 o'clock, all you were seeing was Raw. And then people got 4 weeks of those storylines, 4 weeks of the attitude, the fingers being flipped, son of a bitch, all this, that, and the other. And I'll be goddamn, they never got close to touching that title again, because they got 4 weeks of it. Now, if AEW wants to show me, and I'm not saying who will win, if AEW wants to show me who they are, I mean, right now they're all fighting over the same 1.3 million fans that are watching wrestling. WWE, and I ain't saying, because this was just as we were starting our developmental deal with them, WWE got the only 8.0 in the history of wrestling, which is, I think, in the neighborhood of 9 million viewers. I thought they had more, but according to Google, that's not the case. But they got the only 8.0 in the history of wrestling, which means 9 million people were watching Raw that night. And however many were watching TNA. I'm guessing in the neighborhood of 14 million wrestling fans, maybe 15 million, were watching wrestling. And now they're all battling over the same 1.3 million fans. Wrestling has lost a ton of its live audience. Now, if AEW wants to show us who they really are, ball up. Don't be going against fucking NXT. Don't go against the goddamn developmental program. Go head to head with Raw Monday night, 8 o'clock. Go 8 to 10, go 8 to 11, whatever it is you want to do. God knows you've signed enough fucking talent that you can run a 3-hour show if you want to, and we'll never see the same person twice for a fucking month. Just keep running out new guys. You've signed way too many fucking people. That's what I'm telling you. So go head to head, and then let's see what you're made of. You've made your statement. You're doing good. Great play. We're glad you're around, because now you're someplace else for everybody to go work. You're now a place where people can go get a good payday, many times better than what they were getting in WWE. We're glad you're here, and we're glad you're successful. I wish TNA could be just as successful. I wish NWA could be just as successful. They can't, because someone's going to be number 1, someone's going to be 2, someone's going to be 3, 4, and 5. That's just fucking the way it is. Right now, AEW and WWE are kind of, I think, maybe in a dead heat. Is it that close? You probably look at the ratings more than I do.
It's probably pretty close.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Go head to head. Go head to head. Then we will know who the king of the mountain is. But until you go head to head on equal networks, and I think TBS and USA and TNT are all 3 very equal networks, go head to head. Who wants to ball up? Or Raw. Well, Raw is not going to leave Mondays. So they got to switch to Mondays. But they won't, because they want to get their 600,000 to 1.3 million on the best of nights. I think that's the best they've ever done. Maybe a 1.5 if I'm getting low. Well, fuck, TNA never cracked 1.5. I think 1.5 or 1.3 is as high as they ever got. And that was when they had Hogan, Hall, Nash. Fuck, everybody was there.
Main event.
But guess what? AEW maybe one or two people, doesn't have anybody that WWE didn't let go to begin with.
Yeah.
They have taken leftover talent, unwanted talent, and done the best they could with it. But there's not anybody there that if WWE just bowed up and gave them the money or didn't release them. And I don't know what your opinion of this. What's his Aleister Black? Is that what he goes by?
Aleister Black, yeah.
I have not figured out that fucking gimmick yet. I did not care for it in the WWE, and he might be the nicest guy in the world. I'm not saying anything about him personally.
Right.
I'm saying that fucking gimmick sucks. I am so sick of fucking evil. I'm sick of all the goddamn everybody trying to out tattoo the other one. Everybody trying to out beard. No offense, at least your beard looks nice. Everybody trying to out beard the other one. This fucking Viking goddamn team. Oh my god! I mean, there's just everybody's trying to out evil the other. One evil faction per fucking company, please. All right, just one evil faction per company. And then when that evil faction fails, we'll bring in another one. God damn. How many goddamn evil factions? You didn't expect to rant on evil factions tonight, did you?
No.
Good looking beard, though. Good looking beard.
Thank you.
If I could grow one, I'd have one just like it.
I want to touch on that, though. What
about
Bray
beards?
Wyatt
I'll talk
doing?
beards with you. What do you want to touch on?
No, not on beard.
Oh, okay. I thought we was going to bash beards for a while.
Bray Wyatt, what's he doing now? He's not with AEW yet, is he?
No, he's not there yet. He's
Doing
not
shit.
doing a goddamn thing that I know of.
Dude, they fucked that gimmick up with him and the Fiend. I thought the Fiend had legs. If anybody was going to be able to,
the Fiend had legs, but I'll tell you what else had
Undertaker
legs
was
long before. I'll tell you what else had legs long before then was that group.
Yeah.
What was the name of the group? The Wyatt family.
Yeah.
But here's where they fucked up. In all the promos, do you remember seeing this little country ass girl with the Daisy Duke swinging from a tree or always in the background? They needed that girl, whoever that was, or to get one like her to be a part of the group.
I was thinking that same thing.
And they never did that. They needed that little evil bitch to be a part of the group, whoever. I mean, they put her in the videos, but she never became a part of the faction. And that would have been a good part of the faction is this little evil wicked.
That late.
Which to a degree, what's the little blonde that they never put on TV anymore? And I still don't know why.
Bliss.
Why is Alexa Bliss not on TV? Do you know any background story?
I don't know, but I know that they did pair her up when Bray Wyatt had separated from the family. He was just a Fiend then. But yeah, I agree. If she'd have been a part of that whenever they had the Wyatt family going on, I think it would have been great.
It would have been great and would have made it better. But I thought the Wyatt family was good, and here's why. Bray Wyatt, and people, so there's going to be some people get pissed at me, and Bray Wyatt might be one of them. What's his real name? He's the son of who?
What's his name? Mr. Wall Street.
Irwin R. Shyster. And I love Mr. Wall Street. I'm an AMC stockholder and a big one, by the way. I
can't even give you his damn real name.
Irwin R. Shyster. I can't think of it either. Fuck. I never knew any of the guys by their real names. I didn't want to know them because I didn't want to fuck up and say it on television. If I only knew them, but what is? I can't think of his guy. I know his real name is
Rotunda. Wyndham
Mike Rotundo. Yeah,
I was Mr. Wall Street.
I could not have given you that name. I know if I heard it, I'd know. But if I had to sit here and say Mike Rotundo, I could sit here for the next 20 minutes and not giving it to you. But I love the Irwin R. Shyster gimmick. I was a big fan of it, even though I didn't own one stock back then. I own quite a few now, all AMC. But where was I going with it? So, but the Wyatt family, let's put it this way. Mike Rotundo's kid, as Mike Rotundo Jr., whatever the fuck they want to call him, is not going to get over. Doesn't have the look. Maybe the work ethic's there. Maybe the workability's there. But Mike Rotundo, as Mike Rotundo Jr., or whatever his fucking real name is, ain't going to get over. But that Bray Wyatt shit, and who were the two they had with him? And I always kept hearing about the one that died recently. I kept hearing about what a legend and what, I'm sorry.
Rowan, was that the one that died? Or was that?
Yeah. I'm sorry. If he's not part of the Wyatt family, I don't think we're talking about him today.
Yeah, that's quite possible.
I don't think we're talking, and I don't mean that from a derogatory standpoint. Sometimes you think we'd be talking about stuffing Steve Austin if he didn't become Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I've told him that to his face. Well, not to his face. Well, I guess it was on a podcast. Stunning Steve Austin, or what was that other gimmick he had in WWE?
The Ringmaster.
The Ringmaster. And he knows it. That wasn't going to fucking get over. He got it. Him and his wife at that time got that over. The music has. Do you think Undertaker was going to get over as Mark Calloway and no fucking music? No. You think The Rock was going to get over as Flex Cabana? No. It wasn't going to fucking happen. And sometimes it's just luck and circumstance.
Yes.
And he hit luck and circumstance at the same time. Bray Wyatt got over. The two that he had with him that weren't doing shit, nobody gave a fuck about either one of those two until they became a part of the Wyatt family. They were the perfect fix. They were the perfect group. And why you would fuck
Braun Strowman.
Wait, was Braun Strowman part of that group too?
I didn't come in a little later. It was on the tail end of it while they were.
I didn't even remember that. That might have been when I was on my long ass drought of not seeing Monday Night Raw. That might have been. I didn't even know he was part of it.
Yeah, he kind of come in towards the end there, but yeah, he was a member of the.
And there's another one that had a nice little situation going. I think he was making $1 million a year, whatever he's getting. What's he done lately?
I don't know. I know when
I hear he was asking for private jets. He was wanting 4-star hotels for multiple days. He was asking for way more than he was ever going to fucking get by any promoter that wants to keep some of his money.
Yeah.
And I know indie guys like that. I heard an indie guy the other day that's wanting $550, who I won't mention his name, but he wants $550, all expenses paid, all of his meals paid. And he didn't do dick in WWE. And now all of a sudden he thinks he's a draw. So good luck. If you're the promoter paying it, you're a bigger mark than goddamn name me a mark. I don't know. There's got to be one out there. Jim Cornette. So
almost top of the game though for a while in WWE. He was headlining. He was pay-per-viewing. Braun Strowman.
Yes, he was. He was where it was going to work at.
Yeah.
That gimmick and that was working there. But you take that away and then go somewhere else. Probably not going to work as well.
Even Bray Wyatt, when they kind of repackaged him as the Fiend,
they got lucky twice with that. But he is apparently very talented at doing that shit, because I figured once the Wyatt family went away, but he was still Bray Wyatt, right?
Right.
Just also the Fiend.
He would do his little whatever, the Firefly Funhouse shit.
Yeah. Well, see, I thought that was some of the stupidest shit I'd ever seen, and I couldn't believe wrestling fans were stupid enough to go along with it. But
I didn't get the fire.
I shouldn't say they're stupid. I shouldn't say they're stupid enough to go along with it. You watch wrestling to suspend belief for a while, and that's what they were doing. So I shouldn't say that. Lawler wrestled the Mummy once, and I knew goddamn well it wasn't a mummy. It was Ken Dillinger in a mummy suit. But I wanted to suspend belief, and that was the only time that Jerry Lawler had ever wrestled a wrestler that he wasn't, as a babyface, wasn't begging the wrestler to come back here, come on, let's fight, you motherfucker. Lawler didn't do that to the Mummy. It was fucking Ken Dillinger. It was Ken Dillinger, and you don't know who Ken Dillinger is, and there's a reason for it. He also played Dr. Frank. If you search the old Memphis things, and Lawler brought out a box and opened it up, and Dr. Frank's in the box. Well, that was Ken Dillinger too. Why? Because Ken Dillinger wasn't going to fucking get over for anybody. But Ken Dillinger is the Mummy, and as Dr. Frank, and probably a few other masked characters we don't know about, got over a little bit. But it's hard to wrestle in a Frankenstein outfit, as people found out. And it's hard to wrestle as a mummy with a broomstick down your leg, so you walk with a fucking limp and don't fuck it up. So
I don't know. That whole time period just had me scratching my head, man, because I thought the Fiend was a good gimmick, but it's like every time they booked did
WWE end the Fiend, or did he end it?
I think WWE did.
I think they did too.
It's hard for him to get
how the hell you don't have work for Alexa Bliss, and how Asuka sat on the shelf for so long, and Asuka needs to be a single. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah.
And Alexa Bliss is an amazing talent, 5 feet of dynamite, man. And a lot of people are giving Sasha Banks and Naomi shit. Well, the term is independent contractor. And I heard an old friend of mine who I don't speak to anymore, because he was an anti-vaxxer, and I saw him in a picture with somebody without a mask sitting right next to him. And I said, hey, tell these dumb little fucks to put a mask on when they stand next to you. King, man, you turned that into something ugly. That was a beautiful moment. Well, this is when COVID was at its fucking worst.
Yeah.
And you're letting a fucking 100, 200, 300 people come up to you without work. One of them's got fucking COVID. God damn. No, 3 or 4 of them have COVID, minimum. 3 or 4. That was the numbers back then. About 4 out of every 100 people had COVID at that time. So, and you might be anti-vax, and you might be I don't know what you are. But if I'm doing personal appearances and COVID's at its rise and I'm in the fucking wrestling business, you're masking up, you little motherfucker. You ain't coming anywhere goddamn near me. That's just my own personal belief. So I said something. I said, tell that little motherfucker to mask up. Well, he said I made it something. And then he calls me and is basically cussing me out for making that an ugly shit. We take that shit seriously out here, man. I said, no, you fucking Trump supporters take that shit seriously. The rest of us would be wearing a goddamn mask. Anti-vaccine motherfucker. So he spoke disrespectfully to me. He's 20 or 30 years younger than me. And you lived in my fucking home for 3 years. You don't talk to me like I'm a fucking dog. You say, hey, King, I wish you hadn't said that. Well, let me tell you why I did say it, sir. Let me tell you why I did say it. See if you understand why I said it. I was looking out for your fucking ass. So we never got to that point. You might even figure out who I'm talking about. I don't know, but
I got a slight idea.
Well, you might.
Oh,
he has a beard. He has a beard similar to yours. I'll give you that much.
Oh no, mine's shaped up here. I need to.
They're looking good. Look, if I was gonna have a beard, that's the one I'd have.
Roll companies, man, get some sponsorships going here.
Yeah.
That's where I'm
not going to get any beard sponsorships. So you have them all. I'm not getting any.
While we're on the women here, real quick, what do you think?
I say you're not getting any, and all of a sudden you say why we're on the women. That is not a great segue.
While we're not getting any, let's talk about the women.
Speaking of not getting any, what's going on with Cornette and his hot tub?
Charlotte Flair. I must touch on her for just a minute.
I'm not going to touch her, but go ahead.
She's a fucking hell of a talent in that ring, man.
She is a hell of a talent. I'll grant you that. I once said on a Sports Keto podcast recently, I said, well, I have no desire to kiss Charlotte Flair, because if I wanted to kiss Charlotte, I'd just kiss Rick. And that was before she'd had her work done. And then she has some work done. And I said, well, still too much like Rick for me. There was a girl I went to high school. I went to school with a guy named Steve Hash, and he had a beautiful sister named Paula. And Paula, from what I was told, had a bit of a crush on me, and I kind of liked her. But I couldn't kiss her. You know why? She looked too fucking much like her brother, who was a year older than her. And I couldn't kiss Paula without thinking of him. Well, I don't know how people kiss Charlotte without thinking of Rick. And I guess somebody's doing it. Her boyfriend's in AEW, right?
Yeah, I'm about to say, I think he's in one of the wrestling factions. I'm not sure.
Well, I don't want him to want to beat me up or anything. There's enough people wanting to do that as it is. But I don't know. I'm the bad guy. I couldn't kiss Paula because she looked too much like Steve. Charlotte, to me, looks too much like Rick.
Yeah, I think she was part of that thing not too long ago.
But she is an amazing talent. Let me get that out there. But she also went by the Star Maker, which I wasn't too happy about. And I called the WWE. Actually, I called the WWE because they gave me a copyright strike because I had it on my television in the background because they were in Louisville that night.
Wow.
And so I had it on in the background. I got a copyright strike because SmackDown from Louisville was on in the background. I was doing a live show to get people to watch the fucking show or to go. And, fuck your 5 minutes away. There's 14,000 seats available, motherfuckers. Go watch the show. We only sold 6,000 seats. So there's about 18,000 seats available. Go watch the show. So I'm trying to help them. I get a copyright strike. Same night, Charlotte decides to go by the Star Maker. So I contacted WWE. I said, guys, I didn't mean any harm. I had it on in the fucking background with the sound down. I was just trying to help drum up some business for you and promote your show. I worked with you guys for fucking 10 years developing talent. Surely to God, you're not going to shut me down for 90 fucking days. Well, they were very nice about it. They lifted the ban, and I told everybody, I said, well, part of the agreement was that Charlotte couldn't use the name Star Maker no more. So, and she never did. So it made me look like I was telling the truth for a change. All right, now I know you got another gig to do at 7:55 here. What time you got to do your gig?
A little bit after 8. But what I wanted to do is there anything you would like to plug? Like I know we mentioned your podcast earlier, but is there anything you want to plug? Any upcoming things, charities you want to mention?
Well, obviously, I every show I do, I normally do 3 live shows per week on the Bolin Alley, live and interactive. Not like here to where I'd be heckled the whole show, but live and interactive 3 weeks. As a matter of fact, doing one tomorrow night, the Bolin Alley. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and normally Sunday nights we'll go live at 9:05. This week we did a special Saturday show that did very well. And so tomorrow night and Thursday night for sure, 9:05 p.m. East. It's called the Bolin Alley. Just Google search it. You'll find it. YouTube search it to even be better. And we do Filipino fundraisers, raising money for needy Filipino families, which I've been doing for several years. And the fans have been helping me since COVID. And we just become a member. That helps. Make a donation live during the chat. That helps. or you can donate at kennybolin@msn.com. You can donate that way. Just let me know where you want the money to go. And we also have Food for Filipinos, spelled with an F, not a PH, Food for Filipinos at gmail.com. And they run below the screen on my show. They're very easy to find. Okay. And so come on over and check us out and say hi. Let me know that you saw me here. When's this show going to air? Which it'll already be airing when people watch it, but
I'd say probably about what the fuck's next month? What month are we in? I don't even know.
June will be the next one.
Okay, I'd say probably about mid-June.
Mid-June. All right, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I get my food stamps in mid-June.
I'll get all those links from you, and we'll put them up there in the show notes so anybody.
I'll make sure you got them all. And we're we're Facebook friends, right? Or are we? Email?
I think so.
Just email. All right. Well, write me and tell me where to send you the links and whether you need them in your email or on Facebook or whatever.
Absolutely.
We'll get you taken care of on all that, and we'll do it all in post, as they say in the big time. We'll do it
in post. And I got to go follow you and friend you, and if I'm not on Twitter and everything, to see what the hell, how you're pissing all these people off.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, check that out. Yeah, Twitter, it's at Starmaker Bolin. Facebook, it's / Starmaker Bolin, Bolin. Instagram, Starmaker Bolin. If you're going to find me, just Google search me, look up Starmaker Bolin, and you'll find me. The Twitter account's verified, so it's easy to know which one's mine.
There you go.
Ladies
and gentlemen, I am Hollywood Wade. That was Star Maker Bolin. And unfortunately, we are out of time. Tune in next week for an all-new episode of Crime and Entertainment. Kenny, we appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you much. I did say good day.